But maybe you still don't think you can do it. Maybe you think you're the one exception to the rule. Maybe you don't think there's a trainer out there that can understand what you're going through. Being heavy's tough. Being big is tough. Everything's harder. Maybe you want a trainer that understands that. Well, our guest certainly does. He lived his whole life as a big kid, and at age 19 was told that he's pre-diabetic. That's something no parent wants to hear about their child. He was able to turn his life around and make real long-term changes. He's now an up-and-coming star at FitClub in the personal training field. We are so excited to have with us today FitClub trainer Rockin' Randall Brockmeyer.
You can't give up. You got to keep coming in. Even on days that seem like they're a waste, those are the days that count the most.
This guy's an animal.
You got it. You got it. Keep going.
Randall really understands my needs, and he makes working out so much fun.
Good. Almost there.
He's awesome. I love him.
Oh, it's terrible, but awesome.
Keep going. 5 more.
Awesome.
You got this.
He makes me laugh. It's always just a lot of fun when I'm working out with him.
You have to stay consistent, and you've got to have the right plan in place. 4, 3, 2, 1. Good work.
Rockin' Randall, thanks for being with us today. You know, I often refer to you as the oldest 25-year-old you'll ever meet because you are really wise beyond your years. You're kind of new to this fitness game.
A couple of years ago, you would never have seen me in the gym. So it's pretty new to me. I've been doing it for about 4 years now. Went to school over in Quincy to really officiate it, get my bachelor in exercise science. And from there, I've loved fitness and I've loved helping people out.
You know, I love what I really respect about you is how passionate you are about getting the people you work with great results. It comes across in your attitude, and it comes across in the people. Whenever I ask someone, hey, would you give me a second to sit down and talk to me about how Randall has affected your life? The answer was an immediate yes. It was an enthusiastic yes, please. And I see this with the larger people that you work with that are now shrinking people. They're growing on the inside, but on the outside, they're definitely shrinking in all the right ways. I see a rapport that you have with them, almost an immediate rapport when they learn about your personal fitness story. So take us way back, and you know, not to put the end at the beginning, but you've lost, is it 150 pounds now?
Total, yes. I'm a little bit heavier now that I've put on more muscle. I was actually getting to the point where people were telling me I looked too skinny. So that was to the point where I'm like, okay, I could probably start, bulking up, and that's about the time that I was really getting into exercise science as well. So I was learning a lot more about gaining strength.
Were you large as a child? Was your family large?
Most of my family are a little bit larger. Most of my family gatherings, there is enough food to feed an army. And we usually, if we have 10 people there, there's enough food for 50. The dessert table was completely lined up. It put buffets to shame most of the time. We could have opened up our own restaurant. You get that mentality and you think it's perfectly fine to go with a little bit more food, to go get that second, third plate. When nobody gives you really restrictions on what you are eating, you just kind of go until you can't anymore. And that's kind of what happened with me.
And this is what you're growing up around, and this is what everyone does. So it's not abnormal to you at all to be a little bit bigger.
No, it seemed normal. It seemed like the people that would only eat like a small portion on their plate, or they'd only go up one time and then they'd maybe have a small dessert or something. I thought they were the weird ones.
Now that's at home. You're amongst people that are like you. You're amongst the Randall clan. What's it like when you go to school though? Were you picked on? Was there bullying? I mean, being a large kid in school, the fat kid in quotation marks, had to be hard.
It was tough. It was really tough. What kind of helped me was I was very active, and I think that's what helped me from. I was on the verge, like when I was at my biggest. I was pre-diabetic. I didn't have diabetes type 2. I held my weight very well. I was big and I ate what I wanted, but I was still very active, so it helped me keep me I don't want to say in shape, but more athletic than your regular 250, 300 pound guy. It was tough. Not so much in elementary. I don't think people didn't really judge as much in elementary school. There was a little bit, and like I said, I was very active. I was in most of sports being involved. So I was generally part of the group that the jocks and the athletics. So it did help out, especially when I was younger, that I was in sports. That did help a little bit. But come around junior high or so, that's when the comments really started. And the people pick up on stuff too. You get older, you learn some new insults, and you think it's funny to call somebody fat. What I adapted and what helped me as well is I tried to be as funny as I could. So I used my personality to fit in.
So at this point in junior high, how big are you when all this is happening?
Probably in junior high, I was closer to 200 pounds. But I knew it was a problem when instead of the slide-out chairs, we had the desk that had the seat and the actual table attached to it. And I was having to more or less, instead of just sit down in it, I had to slide into the table. And that, having part of your stomach kind of overhang the table, that kind of really already puts it in your head, hey, these tables weren't meant to, for somebody my size. So it really put it in my head, hey, I probably need to start doing something about it. And even in 6th grade, that's when it really started to bother me about my weight. And that's when, where I was at, we actually had to transfer because our school was so small in Farmersville that I had to transfer over to high school in Raymond. And so there was half the people there I had no idea, had never met them before. We might have played sports, and that helped a little bit. I knew a couple people through sports, but more of the bullying came from people I'd never met before. Once you get something thrown at you, you either deflect it and ignore it, or you come back with something. And most of the time, oh, you're fat. Yes, I have. I've looked in the mirror today, so thank you for reminding me. But I can tell myself, yes, I am fat. I get it. After a while, it just gets in your head. My 6th grade science fair. My science project was the Weight Watchers versus the Atkins diet. Normal 6th grader, that is not your normal science fair. You're making the baking soda and the vinegar volcano. I think I started at about 195 and I lost about 30 pounds. But what's crazy, and this happens to so many people, is the idea that as soon as that science project was done, I probably gained back 40 to 50. I gained more than what I initially lost after I started bringing carbs back in. Personally, myself, when I got to a goal, I'd celebrate. It's time for a celebration. Let's go have that piece of cake I couldn't have for 3 months. And then that piece of cake turns into a pizza. And then that turns into Twinkies. And that turns into this and that. And then you're on a downward spiral. That shouldn't be the case. You should be able to eat food that you like. And you should eat it in temperament. You should make a lifestyle change.
What point did you decide that I'm not going to diet anymore, I'm going to eat clean? And it's not just about being active in sports, it's about regular exercise in a regimented program.
It was the physical before going into college that you had to take. And I think I was at 297 at that point in time. So still really big. And I can't lie, my senior year in high school, I got a little bit lazy. There's a little bit more partying, stuff like that. Introduced to drinking, so and beers, believe it or not, do have calories. So when you drink 10 beers, that's about 1,000 calories, unless you're drinking like MGD 64, in which case I can't do that math off the top of my head, but that's still a lot of calories. So that physical going in there, something in my head was like, hey, 297, you're right on that tipping point. You're right on 300 pounds. 300, let's not get there. That was the biggest goal, was let's stay under 300.
What was the magic in that number? Because 3 more pounds, 297, 300, that's 3 pounds. It's no big deal. But what's the magic behind saying I weigh 300 plus?
The fact that I had 2 in front of the numbers instead of 3, even if it was 299, I'm still in the 200s. It felt good to know that I wasn't in that 300 range. My doctor telling me too, officially, you are pre-diabetic. That was when I was like 18 or 19. It set in with me. I'd actually, that summer, I had seen a program, P90X. I don't know if anybody's ever done it or not before. I did the program. I lost 30 pounds in 2 months. What's unfortunate about those video programs, though, is there's nobody there to encourage you besides the videos you've watched 10 to 15 times already. And they're going to say the same thing over and over. I mean, there's some communities online and stuff, but I was never, I just popped the DVD in, follow it. I think I got, it's really easy to get off track too. I got sick a week. I got the flu really bad. It was in the winter, and I took a week off, and I didn't touch P90X after that. So I got down to about 260, and then I just went ham, like just absolutely crazy. I'd have a long day at school. I wouldn't go to the gym. I'd sit, I'd play video games from 3 in the afternoon sometimes to 3 in the morning.
Mario Brothers burns very little calories.
It does. I mean, you get good hand-eye coordination, but beyond that, yeah, you don't burn many calories sitting there twiddling the thumbs. And that led to more laziness. And I'd noticed, I was moving slower. There were some stairs I had to go up. I was out of breath going up a flight of stairs, going to my like 1 or 2 o'clock class. And I literally, even if I was late, I would have to wait by the door a minute or two because it felt so bad because I'd see people in class I knew and they'd be outside the door and they're like, "Hey, coming in?" And I'd have to kind of breathe off to the side and like, "Yeah, just I'm gonna get a drink of water real fast and I'll be in." I was actually just catching my breath and I didn't want to seem flush and so out of breath from climbing a flight of stairs that it was embarrassing. It was really embarrassing. And when I hopped back on that scale after a couple months, I was 317 pounds.
Wow. So you're 317, freshman in college. That's 19 years old at 317. And that is not a good place to be at that age, at any age, but especially that young. The future's got to look pretty dark. And I got to imagine you probably felt a little dark about things. You can't feel the best about yourself, and that's got to lead to other things too.
No, that was probably, honestly, truthfully, the darkest point in my life. It was bad. I'd go home and food was my release. And I'd get home from college some days and I'd put a Jack's Pizza in the oven. I'd eat the whole thing. That was my snack. That was me starting. And then I'd go to the gas station and buy a big bag of chips with dip. And then candy bars from there and whatever else I could raid out of the fridge. So there was nights, especially when, I'd go to the grocery store, or Dad would go to the grocery store beforehand, and there was 3 or 4 or 5 Jack's Pizzas in the freezer. I'd eat 1, 2, up to 3 pizzas in a night. And like I'd have one in the afternoon, and I'd have one, for supper, quote unquote. And then I'd get hungry about midnight again because I'd stay up till 3. And that would be my midnight snack, a whole pizza, literally. And every time that I'd make the pizza, I'd never intended to eat the whole thing. Honestly, that it's a really dark spiral.